Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules Credit Union.
PK, we went through in December and January this massive football news in the transfer portal. Now we've had a little break here for a couple months, but why do you do that? But the basketball portal is about to heat up. Yak was hitting us with names.
I think it's already heated up.
And a rumor that we're going to ignore for now because it's strictly a rumor, and we'll see if it comes true.
I heard over 600 at the beginning of the week.
Try 1,000.
Yeah, but that was the beginning of the week.
Yeah, but what does the number go to eventually? 1,500? 2,000?
Try north of 2, maybe 3.
It don't make mouth noises. It just encourages him.
Well, he did, not me.
Oh, no, I know. That's what I'm talking
mister. You started it. All right.
You know who has to be the grown-up in the room, Yak. It's got to be you because it's not going to be him.
So we've got two guys.
We got him stopped, and then you restarted him with that.
My apologies.
Okay.
So we got two local connections that have hit the portal this morning.
You love the portal, don't you, though?
Portal's great, man.
Yeah, I do.
It's great content. Nonstop.
The Portal.
So the Utes. Portal.
Raleigh Wooster,
Okay.
a guy who came from Utah State to Utah with Craig Smith. He has entered the portal. Now he's been injured for a large chunk of this season.
So 2 years with the Aggies, 2 with the Utes, and now it looks like a third school in 5 years from him.
Correct. And then Jace Whiting. Now that last name, if it sounds familiar, he's got connections to BYU. His mom's the head coach. His sister's a star guard down there. And his dad happened to play for the Cougars. So those are the two this morning.
Trent was a heck of a player for them. Covered him. That was during my time.
Player for the Utes, too.
Well, I was going to say, he'd spent time in Utah as well.
That was quite the story.
Yeah. That was a big thing. He gave up a half a season because of the transfer. That seems like
eligibility
1,000 years ago.
I know. Now, knowing it bat an eye.
Right.
Then it was like, oh, how could he?
I know.
He was ahead of his time.
Right. Yeah. Good player.
Oh, yeah.
Very athletic for
player.
a smaller kid. I don't know. I've watched his son play a little bit when I've watched the Aggies play Boise. Backup kid. He's just a freshman, though, wasn't he? So
Sophomore, actually.
Was he sophomore?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In basketball, the freshmen can contribute a little bit more than football. We were talking about the quarterbacks. And I've always believed the basketball, the ranking, the star ranking and all that, I thought it was the most accurate. And it translates the best in basketball. But they have a need for backup point guard there at BYU, and I don't know that he would be interested, but that's something to keep an eye on. And then Wooster, these kids want to do what they do. Okay. I'm over it. I think this constant switching and everything, and these guys. Leitner was talking. I saw a thing from Christian Leitner because yesterday was the anniversary of the shot.
The shot to beat Kentucky, right?
Yeah, and so he's talking about that. It's bad for the game, and we keep hearing about it. But when they constantly have coaches moving around, head coaches, assistants, we understand. That business has zero job security in most cases. But the head coaches move around too. So the player, I think they should just do away with the portal and just everyone is in it. You're automatically in it.
I mean, the portal's there to make it look good.
Try to do away with the seediness of it.
That's what the portal is supposed to do. But the seediness goes on anyway. We hear it all the time.
So then do away with it. Then do away with it.
Theoretically, it's like, well, you don't contact a kid until he's in the portal. But all we hear is about third parties acting on behalf of somebody else, probably way more structured than anyone wants to let on, trying to pry kids away from places.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily prying. Are you interested in coming?
That's prying.
I don't think it is. I think that's the world in which you're in. Ariema talked about it yesterday.
It is the world in which we live.
In his press conference.
It is the world.
And he said that one of the reasons for our success is you build relationships with these kids, and then they develop, and then you're good to go. He said, at UConn with the ladies program, they haven't had that much because they're winning, and I think generally women want the experience of being on a team, and they're not looking for FGAs and how do I get to the league. They're in the moment more and enjoying it more. So I don't know that we have near the numbers. Maybe they do, and I'm unaware of it, that we have with the women's game. But his comments
that we have with the men's game.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I like listening to him because he's introspective now, and he's won a ton, and he's really got nothing more to prove.
He's in the Kyle Whittingham untouchable phase of his career.
I would say better, more secure.
That's hard to believe because
yeah. So when he says this stuff, he says, right now the way the game is, and if it's in the women's game, then it's in the men's game for sure. So it's both. And he's saying I have no relationships. It's all about they have the power, they have the control. I have to placate them or else they will leave. We don't have anything that we can do here if they want to go. And so you have to worry about that, and that's just changed dramatically. He said it hasn't changed as much for him, but he's talking about the younger coaches that are getting into it. And he said, but at the same time, the younger coaches, when you're getting into it now, you know full well what you're getting into. And then he made a comment, where do these kids actually graduate? If they go to school for 4 years, what do they claim as their place that they graduated from? And I've never understood that. And he says it sort of cynically, East Coast way. Mm-hmm. But he's right. And I don't know that we're ever going to go and make that change to where there's some form of regulation. Here we are, and just deal with it. Has it, on a philosophical sense, it's taken my love of the game out of it. But at the same time, I'm glued to Clemson, Arizona. I'm glued to Alabama, North Carolina. Because when you get in that do or die situation, emotions are so tense. You see the folks in the stands, they literally can't even look at what's going on right in front of them because they're so nervous and anxiety level is so high. So we don't turn away from it. And so I say, oh, well, I'm not into it as much as I used to be. But then there I am watching it. So my actions don't reflect my big picture emotions.
You don't watch for the reasons you used to watch. You used to know the players, know the stories, and it drew you in, and it kept you there. And now you're watching because of the competition and the adrenaline rush. And you had some of that before.
To an extent. There's no real building of anything, of hard times and going through it. I mean, the Aggies had no hard times. They didn't build anything. It was just there. And now it's gone. But Sprinkle took off. So if Falsleff wants to go and better his situation, we can tell him no. Sprinkle sure did. And he did before. There's no doubt, obviously, while the season was going on, he was setting up his next gig.
Clearly.
And that's what we're going to see with coaches. Years ago, I talked to Tom Homo about this very thing. The fact is, he wanted to announce a coaching change during the season, and he couldn't do it because his thought process was, and it made sense because he went through it when he resigned to Cal, it gave the institution more time to decide. BYU's a little bit different with the church thing, so it's not like they can go out and get anybody. But that's clearly
But that's happened at public schools,
with Washington doing what they did and announcing that Hopkins was done, it allowed them to get Sprinkle.
100%.
So it's and right. Sprinkle. If the guy's not coming back, announce it. And then Sprinkle, everything was set up. And then boom, on the Monday morning, you were being called an a-hole because I put something on social media as we say goodbye to Sprinkle. Oh, no. I didn't even have time to go to the bathroom after the show before Yock says, yep, it's official. Well, we knew it was there.
Well, you were told in Vegas 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
I think every Aggie fan who's paying attention, when I knew that he was gone, I mean, we already suspected it. We'd already talked about it. But I knew he was gone when Scotty said, the offer, it's unprecedented. Scotty's eyes are bugging out, and he's going nuts. And I'm thinking, well, it's got to be close to $2 million then, right? because of the way they were describing it and talking it. Any of us, you, me, Yak, anybody we work with in radio or TV or that used to work with at Trib, anybody listening to us now, if your boss doubles your salary, you're signing before you leave the room. You're not going home to talk to your family and think about it. Done. Double my salary. Let's go.
He's single.
Yeah, he is single. You're right. You can call a brother or something. I don't know. And
He's got 2 sisters.
Okay, call a sister. Like you would call your sisters. But you wouldn't call your sisters, PK. You'd take double the money if
I
you
might
went
call
downstairs.
them, but they would then cuss me out.
Probably,
like, you're a freaking idiot.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
If you don't take this,
And
I'll do this and this to
That
you.
was the last week of the regular season. And I think everybody, you could figure it out then. I could figure it out then. He was gone. So how long before did the talk start? I mean, does it take 2 weeks or a month to get to that point? It was clearly the entire second round of the league season this was on the table.
So you're not supposed to do that, but they do that. So I'm going to eliminate the player to do that?
No.
The fact is, in the world in which we live in, whatever situations, benefits might be the better word, that the coach has, the player now has too. All right.
So it's chaos, but people are still watching the games. It gets super transactional. Loyalty's out the window, but it is what it is.
That's what Ariema was talking about.
Yep.
And Wooster, I don't know what's going through his mind, but if he feels like he can get a better situation,
I mean,
so be it.
In these situations, and you would know it even more than I after all the years of Majerus, when a player goes in the transfer portal, was that the player's idea, or was there a meeting with a coach, and the coach said, we're going to recruit over the top, but this is how much you're going to play. You might want to go in the transfer portal because they want the scholarship back. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
So just because you see a player in the portal, we can't automatically assume it's a player with wandering eyes. The player may have gotten the big old two-handed shove in the back.
The players in Majerus' era on senior night, they used to joke, why not include the guys you're going to run off here in a few weeks? And it was an open secret, I guess.
Well, they all knew that sophomore's not playing enough, and the last 3 guys who'd played as much as that sophomore played all got pushed off the team, so hence the 4th sophomore is going to get pushed off the team.
Right.
It was obvious.
And they also talked about if he tells you he wants to meet with you after they've already had the meetings.
Well, there's only one topic, and that's your exit.
You're getting cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of them, it was very bitter. I mean, I think McTavish was so outspoken about it and just went after the guy. And so they were doing it back then. Oh, and there was a kid down, Jackman was his name, kid from Hurricane, and Majerus wanted the scholarship. Remember when the Cougs over here, they had it at the Delta Center, and they beat Utah by like 30 and in the conference tournament, and Majerus didn't even play the kid, didn't even get it off the bench. So and the kid said to me, well, if I ain't playing, I ain't staying. Well, duh. I think he actually went to Boise. I'd have to double check.
Huh.
But yeah, so they do that there. So it's a business, man. It's a business, and I think that it's been that way. I think it's that way to a degree in high school, and now it's becoming. Yeah. Kids are transferring in. The school I root for, they get them all the time.
It's a combination of the elite kids transfer in, but also we've heard stories about kids who transfer in, and coaches are palming their forehead like, what are you doing that for? You're not going to play here. And they can't stop them from going to high school there. So if they want to go to high school and come out for the team, so you're
and they're
not going to play.
Transferring guardianship to family members so you can be in the boundaries.
Right. Our team's loaded. You're not going to play.
Oh.
Yeah. But they come in anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that's the situation. And this whole thing it's just a big money-making entity now. And we'll see. If they, my guess is Utah has at least one other kid who goes in the transfer portal, and they'll probably add 2 or 3 more, and it's a big old rat race now. And the strongest survive, and the others lose and get fired, and nobody wants that. And this is where we are. And you, as an institution, as a fan of whatever program you have to look at it in its entirety. Are you going to benefit from the portal rather than take a hit? I mean, the Sun Devils were an NCAA tournament team last year. And like 6 guys leave that are playing in the NCAA tournament. In North Carolina State, that's the guy. That's their guy. And all right, well, that's
the strong survive.
It's the way, and they ended up with a losing season.
And we define strength by NIL money
to a large degree, and that's where. To me, if anybody came after my money, you were my enemy. And that sounds cold.
So how does that apply to college sports?
It's the same thing. If you can get more money at institution X versus institution Z, go. And if anybody has a problem with it, you know what they can do? You don't come after my money.
The number is reportedly about $3 million to put together an NCAA team, an at-large team. $3 million. So that means they're probably giving a couple players, the 2 stars, $500,000.
And that's every year.
Right. And the rest of the starters and supporting, another bench guy maybe, that'd be 4 guys at $250,000. So now you're at $2 million. You got a few guys you're giving $100,000, so you're at $2.5 million. You pretty much filled out your roster, and you got $500,000 to spend wherever. Maybe you want your best player to be $1 million guy. Or maybe you want to elevate a $250,000 guy to $500,000. But that's the kind of money that's out there. And so how are you going to tell a player who's getting $250,000 at one school that he shouldn't go get $500,000 at another? Their kids making that decision all the time.
Have at it.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Everything you missed in this show. Next, NCAA tournament. The Jazz tonight. Opening day of baseball. We'll get to it all next.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
I will tell you that I am stomping my feet about this with BYU football. And, I'll take the heat because I get the pushback from coaches or BYU fans or whatever. I don't care. BYU has to do everything they've got to do to improve their pass rush. I don't want to hear about, the pressures were coming at a 34% clip. I need sacks. I will also tell people that BYU is taking large strides to make sure it doesn't happen again. Chad Kawahaha is overworking with the defensive line. Gary Anderson is working with the defensive line. Sione Puak will stay on staff. Kelly Popinga is working with edges. People ask, what does BYU got to do to take the next step? Find a freaking defensive line that can play. Find a D-line that can ball.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
9 a.m. Slacker Radio Headlines brought to you by Tim Dolly Mazda Southtown. Find your new Mazda at the south end of the valley at Tim Dolly Mazda Southtown. That's Tim Dolly Mazda Southtown in Sandy. Had David Locke on this morning. Had a lot of good questions from listeners. How many players will be on the team in 3 years? He did not want to name specific names, but I think he was largely along your line of thinking. There's going to be a lot of turnover. I think the end of this season is guaranteed that. And that the guys who are rookie deals, first-round picks under contract are the guys most likely to be here, but there just aren't any guarantees. Anybody could go in a trade. But if only 20% of this roster is here in 3 years, you're not surprised, I'm not surprised, and David Locke wouldn't be surprised either.
I think the only 2 guys that I can feel most comfortable about are George and Hendricks.
On rookie deals.
And they've shown us stuff. I think there'll be more, but that's the 2 guys that if I had to bet, they should have a prop bet. They should do that. Vegas should do that.
How many Jazz players will be left in 3 years?
Just across the league.
Across the league?
Yeah.
Who stays and who moves?
Chance to make more money. Sportsbooks, that's what
prop bets are everywhere.
For.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jazz and the Rockets tonight. Rockets have won 10 in a row, and they are trying to chase down the Golden State Warriors for the last play-in berth. Who will go straight to the lottery? The Rockets had 3 years where they basically averaged 20 wins over 3 years. And this is year 4 of their rebuild. Maybe they make the play-in, maybe they don't. And they'd be in a place where even if they make it, they're going to have to win 2 road games to get into the playoffs proper. So,
yeah, but for them, that would be a great advantage.
Well, the fact is they now have a winning record, so you can hang your hat on that. 11 teams with a winning record in the West right now.
This is a significant development for them.
Mm-hmm. Only 8 teams with a winning record over in the East.
I like that they're still winning when their center's been out, and he's been putting up big numbers. He got hurt, was it a week or 2 ago?
And yet, the W's keep piling up.
Good for them.
Jazz and the Rockets tonight. Sweet 16 tonight, then Elite 8 on the weekend. Now we're down to 12 teams. Could you predict the 4 that will be still playing when we get back here on Monday morning?
NC State? No. Let's see.
Houston plays Duke. NC State plays Marquette. One of those 4 teams will advance. You stick with the chalk in Houston?
Houston, with their defensive ability, is always going to be in games. And I realize who blew them out in the conference tournament. Was it Tech?
It was Iowa State.
Iowa State, that's right. And Iowa State's sort of the same type of team. They got beat by Illinois, obviously, last night. So, yeah. I probably would still go. I'm not really looking at their seeds at this point. Their seeds are irrelevant. What we saw lower seeds win yesterday. So who cares about the seed?
Number 4, Alabama beat number 1, North Carolina. Number 6, Clemson beat number 2, Arizona. So Bama and Clemson for a spot in the Final Four. They're gonna roll out all the video of all the big football games they played.
I don't even know their seeds.
4 and 6. Bama's a 4, Clemson's a 6.
I would lean Alabama.
I would lead Alabama, but that would not be because of the seeds.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. UConn, number 1 seed, Illinois, number 3. You're going to pick UConn, aren't you?
Well, the way UConn has just been
just destroying people.
Storming through the whole thing, yeah.
They stormed through it last year, and it's even more dominant this year. Last year, it seemed it was all like 13 to 20-point games. This year, the close game was 17 and 30, and then I don't know what the other one was, 40 or something.
And Hurley is a Jersey City guy, and that's where my grandmother, when I was a kid, lived in Brooklyn. And then when she needed to have some form of assisted living, she lived with my Uncle John in Jersey City. Been to Jersey City. It's right across the water. It's a 9-iron away from the city. So I'm going to go with my Jersey guy.
And then finally, Purdue plays Gonzaga tonight. Creighton plays Tennessee, and then the winners meet for the fourth and final of the Final Four berths.
I always root for Gonzaga in these situations, but I think Purdue
finally has their stuff together.
Yeah, I just think that they're on high alert. Not that you need to be here because you've already advanced. Now you're playing a quality team with a quality tradition. They're not a fluke. This is what they do. You know, we were talking about, like, the other day with BYU. Oh, well, it's a one-game deal. And, well, Gonzaga's been there every freaking year for the last decade. So don't give me that.
They're not getting 2 out of 3 series.
You should have won that game.
Answering the bell.
8 days ago.
Yep.
That's the bottom line. I'm not cutting any slack whatsoever. You should have won that game. Don't tell me it's so hard. It's just as hard for Gonzaga.
And yet?
And they're there every freaking year.
So who you got for the Final Four? Purdue, Gonzaga, Creighton, Tennessee.
I'm going Purdue.
Purdue there. So did you pick Houston, Duke, NC State, Marquette? Is it
I went with Houston.
It is Houston. So stay with the chalk. 3 1 seeds and the 4th seed at Alabama.
It has nothing to do with the seeds.
There'll probably be an upset somewhere.
But
it's hard to pick against that.
Is it really? There'll always be an upset. A team that's not favored to win, if it does, is an upset. But what are we talking about? At this point, I don't see it.
We talked to Pablo Mastrani. How do you develop young players? 17-year-old Fidel Barajas looking awesome, but he's still 17 years old. That was a funny story about your nephew. 29, and he goes off to whatever military, pre-military camp training.
Yeah.
Not boot camp.
No.
But something before that.
That's in August.
But boot camp-ish. You got to be up at 4 a.m. and all that. And the 29-year-old felt like he had to be a dad to the 17-year-old.
Yeah, we were sitting outside eating. We went to a restaurant, sat outside again. He was 17. And I looked at him, he was 17?
and I asked Pablo about, well, how do you handle a 17-year-old? On the one hand, the guys on the team know he's competing for their job to take their paycheck away and wreck their career.
I think that's where it's up to management, though.
Mm-hmm. It's up to Pablo.
They've got to take care of the kid.
Chicho Arango has been good to him. He said that when I talked to Fidel. I asked him about, coming in and you're 17, you're starry-eyed. Fidel Bras?
Yeah.
I think Chicho speaks some English, but he doesn't do it in interviews. And I think Fidel speaks some Spanish, but I don't know how much. I didn't
He's
ask
an
him
American.
that. Yeah, he grew up in Sacramento.
And the other guy's not.
Chicho is not, right. But Chicho has played in the U.S. quite a bit and has picked up a good chunk of the language.
And they
but
usually do.
Right, but not enough that he wants to do it in an interview situation yet.
I don't blame him.
But in an interview situation, when you see him listen to the question, and then he waits for the interpreter.
He knows
but you look at his face, you're like, I think you already know the question.
Right.
But he waits and lets him go through it.
Yeah.
And so Fidel I was asking about would you get starry-eyed walking down the field because you watched all these guys, or because the opener was against Miami and Messi, did you just get that out of your system? And he laughed, and he said, yeah, that was pretty wild. He said, but actually the hardest thing was walking on to start training with the team because he'd watched Chicho. And that was a player, plays a similar position, plays a similar way. And so that was a guy he looked up to, and it was weird to, camp opens, and there he is right there. And so as I'm talking to him, Chicho's like 30 yards away. You know how the guys will tease whoever's getting the interview and all that? And he's clearly getting teased, and I've got my back to it, so I don't know who it is. And he's answering my questions, but he's 17-year-old is looking over there cracking up too. But he's trying to stay focused. And I turn around, and sure enough, it's Chicho just giving it to him. He says, hey, TV boy, just let him have it.
Oh, especially as a kid.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, yeah, get to assist. Now you're the man, and all that stuff. So he was cracking him up. And Chicho was yelling stuff in Spanish at that point, and Fidel was getting it. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. We talked to Pablo. You can hear that interview wherever you get your podcast. David Locke, wherever you get your podcasts. David Locke will be on the call tonight for the Jazz and the Rockets, and Pablo and RSL host St. Louis tomorrow night.
What game do they have next week? Is it midweek or is it Saturday?
They're not going to midweek games yet. I do not have the schedule.
So this is his last game as a juvenile.
He'll be 18. He turns 17.
Friday.
Yeah, he's 17 now, turning 18 next week.
They go to Minnesota next week.
That's right. Yeah.
So this is his last game. If he wants to just go crazy, he'll only be tried as a juvenile. Next week, it's a whole new story.
Okay, 18.
Yeah. The law changes.
Major League Baseball started. There were plenty of storylines. The bludgeoning of the day, hard to believe, it happened to the Colorado Rockies. It wasn't in Denver, a.k.a. Williamsport. No. They went on the road and got hammered by your Diamondbacks, a 14-run third inning. That was the inning of the day.
Oh, yeah, they won't match that the whole season.
They won't have another 14-run inning. That was the
Vegas
best.
should have a prop bet.
Nice. Best throw of the opening day goes to Juan Soto from right field.
Yeah, that was so cool.
It's a 5-4 game in the ninth. The Astros get the tying run to second.
Hits.
Yeah.
And 3 hits in that inning.
The single to right, and Soto comes in, picks it up, and you could just see him loading up for the throw. That was a strike from right field to get the out at the plate and preserve the Yankees' 5-4 win. It wasn't the third out; it was the second.
It was the second out. The next guy grounded out to short, and so that was it. I was watching it live. It was a great play. It was a great play by everybody, even the runner. Great slide to try to avoid the tag.
He was way into foul territory, trying to reach back.
Yeah.
Good dive by the catcher to get him.
Yeah, everything. It was just spectacular.
It was the way you draw it up. If it were a movie, that's how you'd do it.
Yeah. It's fun to see the guys compete. To me, that's what it's about. And they were all laying it out on the line, and then they had to wait for the replay, and so then you kind of get to celebrate twice.
Yeah, we got him.
Yeah, and Judge was standing right next to him because he's in right field. Judge is in center, and they're all super excited.
Bizarro stat, Tyler O'Neill has homered on opening day 5 years in a row. He was with the Cardinals, and now he's with the Red Sox, and Boston beat Seattle 6-4, and he goes deep again on opening day. What was the name of the Cub who
Tuffy Rhodes.
Tuffy Rhodes.
Dwight Good in 1994.
Hit 3 home runs.
Nice.
Ended up becoming a star in Japan, of all things, after that.
Yeah.
But the Dodgers are the story. They're the story because of Ohtani and the investigation and what happened and who was gambling and how did the money and all that, and got to get to the bottom of that. They're the story because they spent several $1 billion in the offseason to build an unbeatable machine that would win the World Series. Well, they're 2-1. They split those 2 games with the Padres, but that was a methodical annihilation of the Cardinals, 7-1. That was... I guess that's what you're supposed to get for $1 billion.
Yeah, see, that's the great thing about baseball. If you had an NBA team spent that kind of cash, they'd guarantee they would win it. But baseball, you just don't know.
No, you don't.
And I think that's the intrigue.
If the pitching falls apart and you have the injuries,
somebody
you
hits
never
a
know.
bloop at the end of the bat, or Buckner lets a ground ball go through the leg, whatever it might be. That's the beauty of the sport.
DJ and PK, when we come back, your feedback next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
Don't miss your chance to win big every week on The Zone. Coming up on Win Ticket Wednesday next week, we're going to have tickets to see, wait for it, PK.
Next week is Tim McGraw.
Tim McGraw at the Delta Center, April 5th. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win.
That's huge. Tim McGraw?
Yep.
Yeah.
I figure there are going to be a lot of people listening Wednesday trying to win.
We wanted to go to that, but we'll be out of town. If I was in town, I would go see Mr. McGraw.
How many times have you seen Tim McGraw?
40.
No.
I've actually never seen him.
Really?
But he's come local every single time I've been out of town.
Well, that means you're traveling a lot, so good for you.
I would like to see him. I'll see him at some point. Maybe.
Is that the number one act on the bucket list? Because you were just saying the other day you'd seen everybody you wanted to see.
Pretty much, I think I've seen everybody I want to see. So, people I haven't seen. Yeah.
Tim McGraw.
He's good, obviously. He's got a lot of tunes, a lot of pop tunes that you would recognize even if you're not a country fan. You should try Live Like You Were Dying.
I've heard that song.
Yeah, in my next 30 years, he's got that one. And Always Be Humble and Kind. I mean, the list goes on. And he's Tug McGraw's son.
There it is. Baseball legend.
Yeah.
Have you heard the Cheap Seats by Alabama? Alabama, listen to Alabama, the Cheap Seats. This should be, U-State Iceman says this should be PK's favorite song. It's all about everything he talks about. It's about baseball. Why have we not heard you use it with him on the show?
I don't know.
Put that in the book for next week, Yock.
See, that's sort of old school country, and I don't go back.
But maybe you would like it if you heard it.
No question about it.
I don't know what it is either, but you're not surprised by that. And then we've got this. Oh, boy.
What?
When you see this, you are going to have something to say about this. Chicago History tweets out, would you try this? A new hidden gem at Comiskey Park. A hidden gem at Comiskey Park. A Polish sausage topped with smoked brisket and spicy barbecue sauce. Do you want to eat that, or is that just too much?
First instinct is too much.
Too much. That's exactly what I thought.
Maybe one or the other.
Right?
Not even close to too much.
And look
I'm
at
all
this.
in.
Jake Hatch tweets out, get in my belly.
Or maybe share it.
Yeah, if you cut it in half, it does look like 2,000 calories in the palm of your hand.
Right.
Yuck, you're all about it, though, huh?
My body tells me when I've overdone it.
I find that more than ever I'm in tune with that I just need to eat. And it's part of being older, and you need to eat less and all that. And
Right.
And an old plate full of food looks good, and it tastes good, and then 45 minutes later, you're like, that was a bad idea.
Right. I mean, I literally hurt.
Yeah.
In
don't need that.
In the stomach area. So it tells you back the freak away. Now it's up to you to listen, but it will tell you.
Yeah, but portion size is a big part of it. So whenever you're looking at something, well, maybe the something is fine, but maybe what you need to do is just eat half of it.
I think it's not a big part of it. I think it is the whole
part of it.
Yeah, as you get older, you just can't do that.
You're the king of going out to eat and taking half home as leftovers for later.
Or we split.
Yeah. And you're covered.
And she'll get it, and every time when we don't split, we'll both look at each other. We should have split.
This
is stupid. We know the rule.
DJ and PK, we are out of time. Coming up next, Jake and Ben. And my instincts tell me Michelle is sitting in for Ben.
Ben's right there, man. I just saw him.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, so Michelle's in person. There's Ben. Yeah, there's going to be the three of them. All right. That's coming up next right here on The Zone.